Hey everybody, welcome back to Nerd to the Third, episode 18. Your stop for movies, video games, and nerd culture. Today we're bringing you the Power of Three with your host, Nick, Coach, and T-Foles. Alright, so thank you guys for joining us today. We're going to do a quick little grinding here. If you haven't already, make sure to go to our Twitter at TX3 Productions, or you can go to ThreatX3 Productions on YouTube or Facebook. We've been having a lot of stuff on YouTube. I've been having fun with zombies, so I've been doing some experiments there. And then coming up very soon, we're actually going to have Resident Evil in review. We're actually going to be recording that right after this episode, so we'll be getting that out as soon as possible. But let's get started with the show with X3 Reacts. So, X3 Reacts, we're going to take some trailers and we're going to react to them.
See what you did there.
Yeah. It's like this new thing. I think I'm going to trademark the name and make sure that nobody else can use that word.
React. Huh. I feel like that's been done before and it wasn't received very well.
No, I think people would love it if I just took a word in the English dictionary and then just made it my own. Or even a phrase like "you're fired."
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
That was so good.
So, you know what? Since I brought it up, so first thing on X3 Reacts, since I made the reference, I have to. It's been going all over the Twitter sphere, so maybe this should be "it came from the interweb." I don't know. Anyways, but have you guys seen the footage of Donald Trump and the umbrella?
Oh yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous.
I don't understand it. Doesn't make sense.
I mean, okay, we never want to take this to a political place, but luckily there's nothing political about that. It's just, oh my God, it's like a Three Stooges sketch.
Well, can we also just talk about, like, I understand that Trump is the president and everything, but how hard is it to, like, close the umbrella and take it in with you? Like, was he instructed not to because if it was raining, it would dampen the Air Force One or something? Like,
yes, how dare you, sir? It's a sanctified floor. You do not wetten it with thou umbrella.
Yeah, so I'm just like, and actually that's not even the case because the guy came up a whole 40 seconds later.
I just think he couldn't be bothered to do it. He just,
Well, and if you look at the footage, you can see him like
get a new umbrella.
Lean in. He leans in and he yells at somebody. So I don't know if he's like, "Who's taking this umbrella?"
Someone get this umbrella.
Please get this umbrella.
Oh my God. I couldn't believe, I was telling T-Foles before the show, I was telling him, I don't think I've genuinely laughed that hard in a really long time.
Well, look, I really didn't start laughing because I was kind of baffled as to what was going on, and the umbrella just sat there.
And then the second person,
second person came and he just walked around it.
But hey, the Secret Service guy picked up the umbrella.
Oh, yeah, I know. That's the thing. It's, the Secret Service, their job is to protect the president. They're make sure he's not going to get killed. He's not going to... But, like, that bald guy at the very end, I mean, there's probably a very good chance, 90% chance maybe, that's a Secret Service guy. And he's sitting there just cleaning up after the president. Like, it's so funny because, like you guys were saying, the second guy, he doesn't think to pick it up. He's like, that's not my job. Hello.
And what's the money bet that the guy that actually came up and got it, that was his job? And he just, for whatever
he's
reason,
the umbrella guy. He wasn't there at the top. That's who he was trying to yell in when he was there and he looked in. He's like, "Where's my umbrella guy?"
Like, so I don't know. It was a ridiculous video. Again, I didn't get the humor until about 30 seconds in, and the second guy just walked around it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this umbrella is just sitting there. And
I know
again,
now that I rewatch it, because I was kind of like you at first, where I just kind of like looked at it like, "Are you serious?" And it's not until repeated viewings that it's like knowing what's coming just makes me laugh as soon as I see it, because it's just, oh my god! And like even just right before the show, I happened to be scrolling down in Twitter and I saw somebody else had retweeted it, and I just started busting out laughing because it was right at the part where he just leaves it, and I'm just like, oh my god. Best trailer of the week right there, kids.
Yeah, and I mean, I was telling Foles, like, what would have happened if for some reason somebody came out of the airplane and didn't see said umbrella and just tripped over it?
Oh my god, what? How tall are those staircases? Like 10, 15 maybe?
Right. Yeah. Probably more.
You know the worst part about it? The worst part is that on CNN, is it? No, it's actually Fox News. Okay, no disrespect whatsoever, but that's the title at the very bottom. Here, they're talking about that something that's supposed to be so somber and something that's, I mean, it's a tragedy. Multiple fatalities at Pittsburgh. I mean, honestly, but the thing is that as Donald Trump does, that's no longer the focus, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was something about there was some type of mass shooting or something like that in a Pittsburgh synagogue. And so that was the headline. That's what they were referencing. And whatever the news source was doing, they were just showing the president leaving. You know what I mean? Like a live look in at the president either going to the scene or leaving the scene. I couldn't.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
And for whatever reason, they just left it on the umbrella. And now it's this clip that's just outright funny with a terrible headline at the bottom.
Terrible, just terrible. And see, the first time I seen it, it was without the headline. So then as I see the headline, I'm like, oh, no.
Oh, no. And then the best part is like, well, I guess not the best part, but like the commentators behind it are like all somber about it because it is a very tragic, terrible thing that occurred that they're reporting on, whatever. And so they're like, and here's President Trump going into the airplane,
leaving his umbrella.
And, President Trump said this today, and he's talking about how the people responsible should be held to the highest standard of the law. And all there is this umbrella just sitting there with the guy walking around it during this whole thing. And so the video itself is hilarious. The topic isn't, but the video itself is very hilarious.
Yeah. So on to happier times. We got another Liam Neeson movie coming out.
Woo! Old man Neeson.
It's not like all of his other movies?
Old man Neeson. It's Liam Neeson's son. On a Neeson. Son.
Jesus.
But yeah, what was your reaction watching this? Let's go T-Foles first this time.
I mean, it's Liam, typecast Liam Neeson movie.
Right.
Action, probably some quick cuts.
Yeah.
Nice action chase scenes.
Mm-hmm.
It does have a little bit of humor, so I think it's going to be a good popcorn flick.
Yeah.
I don't think it will be bad, but it'll be just another Liam Neeson movie.
Yeah, I do like, at least in the trailer, obviously we don't know the full tone of the movie, but definitely in the trailer they kind of hint at the fact that, like, this is kind of just a normal guy. This isn't like, I will find you and I will kill you. This is just a normal guy, and his son, like, overdoses, and so then he's, like, on the revenge path. And so it shows a couple of scenes throughout the trailer of him, like, kind of just maybe getting some stuff wrong. And seeing that side of Neeson, I think, is going to be actually kind of cool. Because it's like when we saw him in 1,000 Ways to Die in the West, he was the antagonist, so he was still, like, antagonizing. But it was also just really funny to see him kind of poking fun at himself and poking fun at his own, like, typecast, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Coach?
You remember when Liam Neeson used to do, like, good movies?
Wah, wah, wah.
Well, look, here's my thing, okay? He has done so much of this since Taken. Like,
right, yeah.
He's a tremendous actor. And I believe he won an Academy Award, right, for Schindler's List?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, why do you keep doing this?
Yeah, and I already want to argue that, like, the first Taken, like, oh, okay, this is, like, redefining action. Kind of like with John Wick a couple years later. It's like, it's redefining action and the way you should look at action and action heroes. And then Taken 2, Taken 3, it's like, okay, you're just laughing at us now because you know that we're just going to pay money for it.
And let's keep in mind, Taken 2 and 3 were not good movies. 3 was better than 2.
Not.
3 was better than 2, but...
Really? I honestly have not even seen it. Like,
well, you know what? Here's the thing about the original
diminishing
Taken.
returns.
Here's the thing about the original Taken. It was the first time Liam Neeson had done anything action-y. And... True. You know, or at least that scope of action.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it was this big, well-known actor that decided to do this random action movie, and it caught everyone off guard.
Right.
And you made the good point that it kind of reset what action movies need to be. The fight choreography, the way it was shot. There wasn't any jump cuts in that movie, you know, where it's like punch, cut, punch, cut, punch, cut. It was kind of streamlined. You could actually see the action.
Yeah, definitely.
So look, here's some of the things that Liam Neeson has done since the original Taken. We already talked about 2 and 3. Okay, and then Clash of the Titans. We all were there for that one.
They literally just wanted him for his voice on that one. They just wanted him to say, "Release the Kraken. Here's a couple $100,000. Thank you. Have a good day."
Yeah, pretty much. Now there was The Gray. If you hadn't seen The Gray,
I love
pretty good movie.
Such a good movie.
But
yeah.
It was a little bit in the action genre, but that was a drama. It was not an action movie. It was
survival drama. Yes.
You know, Unknown. Have either of you seen this movie?
Is that the one where his son is doing something?
Nope. It is.
Oh, that's the one where he loses his memory.
Yeah, that one's intriguing.
It's intriguing, but it also, like, the way it was marketed made you think it was an action movie, which was it was much more of a thriller. It was much more of a, you know, intellectual thriller. And so going into it and being like, all right, let's go Liam Neeson, kick some ass. And he does, but it definitely wasn't on the scope that you were thinking it. And it's all because of the freaking marketing.
Oh yeah. The last 15 minutes of that movie were action filled and he was kicking some serious ass.
Right.
But you know, so there was that one. Again, not a great movie.
And then there were snakes on a train.
Yeah, there was. And then he did Battleship.
Oh, God, right, yeah.
You know, and I'm trying to leave out some of his smaller roles. You mentioned, like, A Million Ways to Die in the West.
Yeah.
A Walk Among the Tombstones was a terrible movie.
See, and that one had RoboCop in it, the new RoboCop. And I think that's the one where, like, something happens with their son or whatever. So it's like...
Yeah, it's like a investigative murder mystery type thing, but it's not a very good movie. Nonstop, decent, but...
Oh, that's the plain one. That's the one I was making the snakes on a train. Well, actually, there is a train one as well. So that's where it starts getting confusing. It's like Samuel L. Jackson is like, is there a movie? Yeah, he's probably in it.
Yeah, pretty much. And then Run All Night, terrible movie. A Monster Calls, probably the best movie he's done since
Which
Taken.
one's that one?
A Monster Calls is based on this kid's book, and if you haven't seen the trailers, you need to watch it. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah. Actually, I do remember it now. He's the voice. That's where I got confused. He's the voice. He's not actually in it.
Correct. He's just the voice, but it's the best thing he's been in.
Yeah.
That I would argue since the first Taken movie.
Yeah, since that Narnia. Ever since the Narnia, it's been all the way downhill.
Pretty much. And then The Commuter was the train one that came out.
Yeah, there we go. The Commuter was the train one. She comes on and she's like, do you know everybody on this train? I bet you don't. And then you should go find out. Okay, bow.
Yes. So, he hasn't done a good movie. I guess The Monster Calls, but he hasn't acted in a good movie in about 10 years.
He's been in plenty of movies, but has he acted?
Yeah, I mean, that's where Liam Neeson's career sits right now.
Yeah. And so it is so hard to have a Liam Neeson type where it's like you get him in a movie and you get him in a very serious role like The Gray, but then you put that smack dab in the middle of all this shit, and it's like it's hard to remember why you like him. What's another good example? Will Smith, I think, is probably a really good example.
Yeah.
Like, he has his flops, but then when he does good, it's like he does good, and it's like you love it. But then it's like he does like After Earth, which I still like. I don't necessarily like his son's part in it, but like I liked him. It's like he's stoic and stuff. But then he also did like Wild West was another that one almost ruined his career, and so it's so weird to see that right next to like what's one of his most recent ones. He does this thing where he like writes letter to love, death, and I think time.
Collateral Beauty. That one was so weird because they marketed it as something way, way different. Well, they marketed it as something kind of like A Christmas Carol, where he writes all these different letters and the ghosts come and see him. Turns out it's basically like all of his friends just more or less playing a prank on him.
Not so much a prank, but basically they're like, well, we need to move the company forward. He's not moving forward, so we're going to move it forward, or we're going to make him seem crazy by digitally removing people from the video we shoot of him so that he is deemed unfit for duty, and so then they take the company for him. It's like super messed up and not what they marketed whatsoever. And if anybody's worried about spoilers, don't worry. That literally happens like 15-20 minutes into the movie.
Oh.
Well, it's also like 5 years old at this point, right? Like,
I mean, I'd have to say that one of Will Smith's best performances was in Pursuit of Happiness.
Oh, yeah, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
And that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, his son was like
Bright
3.
was really good, too. I don't want to diminish what Netflix is capable of, but Bright was also really good.
Yeah.
I actually never watched Bright.
I personally loved Bright. I thought it was very well done. It was a popcorn flick, but on Netflix, and a lot of people are like, oh my God. I don't know. I don't want to get into that whole thing. All right. So, another parallel to Trump. Hugh Jackman is playing in The Front Runner. And I mean, I watched this trailer. If anybody else has seen this trailer, it's based on a true story, and Hugh Jackman plays a senator or something who's running for president, basically. And as soon as it got done, I was just like, wow, this is very, very eye-opening. Like, this is a story that I didn't personally know, but basically here's this guy. He was the front runner to become president, and then because of like one little scandal, it tore his entire world apart, and he was no longer the front runner. And so that's basically this story. And I mean, I was like, wow, how do we go from that to, I mean, I'm sorry, but Trump, whether you believe it or not, is, I think, irrelevant. Whether you're a gung-ho Trump and you're just like, you're on his side no matter what, and, it still begs that question, like, wow, that's a lot, versus this was pretty much just a affair. I don't know why I couldn't think of that word.
A series of scandals.
Well, and I don't even know, like, at least from the trailer really just made it seem like the affair was the main thing everybody was focused on, because he was unfaithful, and so that made people question whether or not he was presidential. And I'm like, really? What year was this?
What year is it?
Can I go back there?
Okay, so if you don't know anything about history, I was not born at this time, but David Hart was running for the 1988 1988 presidential election.
Oh, okay, that's when I was born, actually.
Yeah, so it's a true story. But basically, he was the front runner. He was favored to become president. Mm-hmm. And the scandal broke loose, and basically he lost the presidency to a George H.W. Bush.
He got bushed. He got bushwhacked.
He got bushwhacked. And
I hope those were headlines back then.
So that's kind of what this movie is about, is
Wow.
that rise and fall, I think, according to IMDb on their little rating scale, it's not super great. It's like 6.6 or something like that. But
I imagine, and I mean, this is just me saying it out loud, but I imagine like Republicans might have like hate bombed this trailer. Like I wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
Maybe, but if anything, it might tell the story of why that stuff doesn't matter as long as you can run the country. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
So it depends on what the movie does and how it portrays it and all that good stuff. But it's got Hugh Jackman in a serious role. He's not singing and dancing. He's not. He doesn't have knives coming out of his hands. Because basically for Hugh Jackman, it's kind of been either he's been Wolverine, and then there's Les Miserables, and then there's Greatest Showman, and that's kind of like the biggest things he's been in as of late. So to see him in a more serious role is going to be nice, because people tend to forget that Hugh Jackman was at one point in time like considered to be, and still is, a top actor.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I'm hoping that he can do really well with this movie, and I don't know if it's getting a wide release or not. It didn't say anything about that on the trailer or anything, but so I'm for one, just liking like biographical films and historical films. I'm all in.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. I'll watch it literally because of Hugh Jackman. It's one of those. Hugh Jackman's definitely one of those actors that I would watch just because he's in it. There's not a lot out like now.
And the secret weapon of J.K. Simmons. So
yeah.
J.K.
You got to go in for J.K. Simmons.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
J.K. Simmons is like his advisor guy. He's J. Jonah Jameson.
Yes. I'm sorry.
J.K.
I was getting that mixed up with Rowlings. I'm like, what does Harry Potter have to do with this?
No, J.K. Simmons is
yes,
like
I'm sorry.
So
yes, I
underrated.
knew that.
He's so underrated. J. Jonah Jameson. He was in a movie with Miles Teller. All of a sudden, I can't think of the name of it, but it is an outstanding movie.
What movie is that?
Oh, jeez.
The one where he's a drummer. I can't. It's such a good movie, though.
Drumline. Yep, Drumline.
Not Drumline. That's the Nick Cannon movie.
Also, a pretty good movie, Whiplash.
That's what it is. That's the one he was talking about.
If you have not seen Whiplash, you need to watch it. That is the assignment for the week, people.
Yeah.
It will change your life. I love that movie so much.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in it, and I just hope the number one thing I do hope is I do hope they go at it from a historical standpoint, because like me seeing this trailer in today's day and age like really makes me feel like this is almost like a hit piece on Donald Trump to just be like, haha, look at this, look at yourself in the mirror. And I'm like, if it's a good movie, that's one thing. But if this is literally just an excuse to get mad at the president, it's like, do we really need that? It's like when, what's another good example? I don't know. It's just so many things now that it's like, just shaking their finger. And it's like, does it really do any good? And I don't mean that in a mean way. I swear to God. Like, I don't mean that in a very like judgmental way. It's just that what good is this going to do if that's the reason you're making it? Make it because it's an interesting story and you want to tell that side of it. Don't make it because you want to stick one to the president. Like, love him or hate him, he's still the president. So it's like, do we really need to spend time making an entire movie just to tell a single person that what he's doing is wrong, or that you think what he's doing is wrong? I don't think so.
Yeah, it kind of seems about, if it goes that route, it'll be something of kind of like, what's that movie called? The Hate U Give, that's out in theaters right now.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind
What's that one?
The Hate U Give.
Maybe that's the one I was thinking of.
I can't remember her name. Let me look it up real quick.
Interesting.
Sounds familiar. It's like there was another movie recently that's like this is a mirror to the United States. Another one would be like, like, God, why am I? Oh, The First Purge. First Purge went super political, and it's just like they even had a red hat with the words "the first purge" on it, insinuating that like that's where we're headed just because we have Donald Trump as a president. And it's like, come on, guys.
Yeah, okay, so the hate you give, I'm pretty sure it's based on I'm pretty sure it's a fictional story.
Uh-huh.
But basically, here's what the main character's name is Star, and it has Amandla Stenberg as the main actress that plays the girl. Mm-hmm. And she's been in several things lately, but basically, here's how the description goes. Star witnesses the fatal shooting of her childhood best friend Khalil at the hands of a police officer, now facing pressure from all sides of her community. Star must find her voice and stand up for what's right. So it's kind of, you know, so it's definitely politically driven movie, and it's an okay movie, but it's one of those things where I don't know if it gets made if it wasn't in the time that it's in. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
definitely. Yeah, definitely. So I mean, like, yeah, we got Liam Neeson's son.
Liam Neeson's sons in a Neeson.
And what was it called? Cold Pursuit, right? Cold Pursuit. I think I'm definitely gonna wait to rent it. That definitely doesn't seem one where I'm gonna like rush out to it. The Front Runner, I'm definitely gonna see it. Me personally, I'll wait till it goes to like a cheaper theater, or maybe do it on like a bargain night or something like that. Personally, What about you guys?
I'll probably try to watch both.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's right. You got that there. You got that.
I got the AMC.
You might as well.
Yeah, I haven't utilized as much as I should lately. I've probably only seen one movie in the last couple of weeks, but I've just been so.
It's been slim pickings, though. It's not your fault.
I mean, I haven't seen First Man still. Yeah, but I want to, and I'm going to see it at some point. I might go see it later this week. But, you know, so you're right, the movie pickings have been really slim. They're all waiting for the Oscar time, you know, so in the next week or so, we're going to start getting just hammered with them.
I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody's coming out?
Oh, yeah, I'm all in on Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh,
but,
I can't wait.
But I'm probably going to go see both. Now, whether I see them opening weekend will kind of depend on what else is out that I haven't seen and want to see. And, you know, like, for example, Front Runner, I think it said it comes out like in November 21st, which is like that Thanksgiving weekend. I'm pretty sure it's the same weekend that Creed 2 comes out.
Yeah, screw that. Go see Creed.
Yeah, so
America versus Russia. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. And I'm a huge Rocky fan, and me and my dad are going to go see it. Fun fact, my dad was an Olympic boxer.
Oh,
back in the 80s.
Fun.
Yeah, he well, let me rephrase. He went to the Olympic trials, but lost to Evander Holyfield. You know, and if you don't know anything about Evander Holyfield, he's only a 4-time heavyweight champion of the world. So. Fun fact about Coach Smith and his family. So
nice.
So
all right, so then T-Foles, what do you think? Are you gonna try to watch them? What do you think?
I'll wait till Cold Pursuit is on HBO, if anything. And Front Runner, I might rent it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll go see it. I'm definitely, whenever Vice comes out, probably go see that in theaters.
Okay.
But,
okay.
I don't know about this one.
So, I mean, that's it for our X3 reacts. So you guys let us know, what do you guys think about the new Cold Pursuit and the Front Runner? Let us know down in the comments below, or you can go to ThreadX3 Productions on Facebook or TX3 Productions on Twitter. Up next, we're going to have our open discussion. So, all right, open discussions. Obviously, we have just each person brings their own topic that they would like to talk about, and then we just go at it. So, Coach, what's your topic of the day?
My topic of the day is going to be that Marvel shows getting canceled from Netflix. Bum, bum, bum.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. I'm actually we kind of talked maybe a little bit about this, but then between the last time we talked about that and now Luke Cage also got canceled. And there's even whispers about Jessica Jones and possibly even Daredevil being canceled. So it is not looking good. I mean, I could have told you back when, Luke Cage started. Hey-oh, but,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't watch any of Iron Fist or second season of Luke Cage.
Yeah.
Iron Fist, I didn't like any. So when that came out, season 2, I just didn't really care to jump on board.
Same.
You know, but because I watched like the first 5 episodes of season 1 and I just stopped. I was like, this is terrible.
I plowed through it, and it was just for the reason that it's like, it's not horrible. Like it was horrible, but it was like, it was pretty much, I honestly think it was probably just because nothing else was on.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, I finished Iron Fist, but I never finished Luke Cage. And I would say arguably that Luke Cage, even though it was bad, it was still better than Iron Fist.
Luke Cage season 1 or season 2?
Season 1. I haven't even seen season 2 of either of the other ones.
Gotcha.
So I'm the reason, people.
Well, yeah, because you see, I watched season 1 of Luke Cage.
Yeah.
But they kind of lost me season 1 whenever Cottonmouth died.
Yeah.
And
which
he died
was
like
halfway through.
Season.
He was definitely the, like, I like, who's the actor who plays that? Do you know his real name?
Something Ali.
Oh yeah. I really like him.
I can't remember his name, but he's won an Oscar now, so I mean his life is great. He's showing up in a lot of stuff now.
Yeah. Moonlight, right? He won for Moonlight?
Yeah, Moonlight, yep.
Yeah.
But so they killed off Cottonmouth like halfway through the season, and I'm like, I don't even care who the new villain is.
Yep.
Like, because I was so invested in Cottonmouth and what he was about and everything he represented and yada yada yada, and then they just offed him off at like episode 6, and I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah. Honestly, I think that is probably when I ducked out too, because they killed him off, and I'm like, dude, he's the reason that I'm even, here.
I mean, because what made we talked about, like you said, I think we talked about it on Weekly Grind. The one thing that made Daredevil season 1 really great was Wilson Fisk.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
How great Vincent D'Onofrio was in that role, how menacing and smart, and it felt like a match. Jessica Jones season 1, same thing.
Same
the
thing.
Villain,
Purple. Yeah.
Yeah. The villain was just insanely good. We cared about the villains. We cared about the characters, and then Luke Cage had that same thing going on.
Yeah. It's that love to hate him kind of
yes.
mentality, and you have like Iron Fist. Yeah. They just didn't have a central villain. They had this organization. It was the same thing with the Defenders. It was this organization, and then you could even say that it was a trend. If you look at it as a whole, it's a trend, because in Defenders, Sigourney Weaver is like the main antagonist, but then a certain way through it, Elektra kills her.
Yep.
So it's like it's a trend where they start off with a really good antagonist, and then they're just like, because they think it's like edgy, I guess.
Well, that's kind of like season 2 of Daredevil. The Punisher was like that dude, and then he didn't die, but he just kind of went away. I mean,
yeah,
I can't remember. I think Daredevil ended up sending him to jail or something. I really can't remember, but and then it went to whatever that organizational name was that carried into the Defenders and Iron Fist and all that. And so I think a lot of people just got lost with the story in general, but that's not what makes all this interesting. The interesting thing that I want to question is all this just going to Disney's streaming service? Or is Iron Fist and Luke Cage going to come back with, in some type of Heroes for Hire type deal? Are they still going to make cameos?
Yeah.
Because remember, Luke Cage started out in Jessica Jones, and
True.
Luke Cage was such a popular character, they're like, hey, we'll give him his own spinoff,
Well, was it that, or did they already plan it, and they are really just doing, who was it? Was it Chuck? I think Chuck was the one who coined well, I don't think he coined it, but he said a backdoor pilot. So I think, like, Jessica Jones was the backdoor pilot for Luke Cage.
Right, but the backdoor pilot is designed to see if it's worth doing a series.
Yeah, okay, all right, never mind.
Right, so like if
I
the
talked
backdoor
myself
pilot,
into that one.
Yeah, so like if the backdoor pilot, because I think I know the episode you're talking about from season 1, but if the backdoor pilot doesn't work, or if people don't like it, or the showrunners don't think it's worth a story worth telling there, they'll just not do it. So the most popular one to think about was there was a backdoor pilot from in The Office in the last season where it was going to be about Shroot Farms.
Okay.
And it was all about Dwight Schrute and his family, and that was the whole episode.
Interesting.
And the showrunners decided not to do it, and Rainn Wilson decided not to do it as well, just because they didn't think there was anything really there to tell. So the backdoor pilots are designed to, give that little bit of leadway as a test run, if you will.
Yeah.
But I think that all these characters are going to come back. It just might be on Disney's streaming service. Because in their quotes, if you look at the statements about them being canceled, is like these characters not showing up or not being produced by Netflix. Yeah. So I think there's a strong chance that they'll get a reappearance either in Daredevil and / Jessica Jones. They mix together Luke Cage and Iron Fist with Heroes for Hire, or none of it goes to Netflix after the next year and they cancel everything and they just move everything over to their own streaming service.
Yeah, I think at least with Daredevil in particular, because so far I've been really enjoying season 3. I want to say we're 5 or 6 episodes in, and I'm
on episode 5.
Oh no, maybe 3 or 4. What? Definitely 4.
Are you maybe after where he goes to the prison and
the
hallway scene, basically?
No, but that sounds awesome because that sounds reminiscent of season 1.
Very much so. So when you get there, you've kind of hit where the show really starts, and Bullseye starts to come into play a little bit more.
No, don't ruin it for me.
I thought you caught on to that, dude. If you're on episode 5, I thought you caught that.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I thought you caught it.
Dang it! I'm not happy with you.
I'm sorry.
Well, I did get to the part where his convoy got attacked and.
Oh my god, dude! You're on episode 3.
Am I really?
Yeah, you're not even.
Well, see, I definitely got 4 then because I got the one after that.
You misled me.
I'm sorry.
I
don't know numbers.
I was able to speak.
Okay, this isn't high school anymore. Not everybody's a teacher.
But yeah, so just keep watching. It's really, really good. And when you hit that scene that I'm talking about, hit me up in Discord and we'll talk about it then.
Okay.
All right. But so that was all I was really wanting to say about the shows being canceled was, I think they're just going to end up showing back up in Disney, or there's going to be some type of crossover or something. I don't think they're completely disappeared.
Yeah. So then, what I was saying was basically, I don't personally think that it would be smart for them to take it from Daredevil, at least from Netflix over, because I feel like a lot of people would be worried that it would be diluted. It wouldn't be as dark and gritty, and you wouldn't be able to cuss, or maybe if you did, you wouldn't be able to do it as much. I personally, that'd be my worry. And like that is part of the reason. I like how they show blood. They're not afraid of blood, but it's also not about the blood. It's not about the violence necessarily.
It's not that gruesome. Some of it, you're like, ooh, but it's not like, oh, I gotta turn away. It's so horrendous,
Yeah, it's like, it's brutal, but it's more because like this cool move that he pulled off rather than, he just chopped somebody's head off or he shot somebody in the head like Punisher would do.
I think it's the type of action that Liam Neeson popularized in Taken, honestly. Like, we're just like, ooh.
Full circle.
Full circle.
Oh, man. So then, T-Foles, you haven't really said that much. What do you think about it getting canceled?
I don't really have an opinion. I don't even think I finished season 1 of Daredevil yet.
Oh, dude, what are you doing?
So, I'm a little behind.
2.
I don't really have any say in this conversation. But I
can
understand
season 2
from Netflix's point. Now that they have a bunch of original content, because that's Marvel and Netflix. That's not just Netflix. And at the time of Daredevil, they had 1 or 2 shows?
Yeah.
But actual Netflix original shows.
Oh, now, no, they had a lot more.
Well, what I think he means is that there's a couple of times that like they would pick up a BBC show, and they would they would put it on Netflix in America, so it was still a Netflix original, but technically it was a BBC show.
Even if they had a few more Netflix original shows, they only had like House of Cards and maybe one or two other shows.
Orange is the New Black. Yeah, exactly.
Like those were the two main shows, Orange is the New Black and House of Cards. Now they have a million different original content, including a bunch of documentaries and a full, feature-length movie. Right. They might be, in their mind, starting to want to get away from having a tie to a bigger company.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Marvel, I don't think that they'll just get rid of all the content. Because, as you were saying before, all these shows are a little bit darker for like a family Disney streaming service, unless Disney has a thing where they go into more adult content, maybe a tab or a parental guidance system thing, a setup or a lock. But I can't see them throwing away the shows or getting rid of them from the platform. But
true,
I think they might be thinking of getting away from being tied to certain companies and doing collabs with those certain companies and just making their own original content.
Yeah, very possible. So T-Foles, what is your topic of the day?
My topic of the day is things from old games I'm glad are gone.
Yeah.
Recently we've started up Resident Evil in review, and me, you, and Coach here have been playing Resident Evil 0, which has been an experience, to say the least.
Definitely.
And the first thing that everyone probably has to comment on, and I'm gonna comment on as well, are the controls.
Yes, definitely.
Not as bad as I thought, because they did for the remake, for the remaster, they did include an advanced or an alternative control style for newer controllers.
Mm-hmm.
But damn, those camera angles.
Yeah. And see, like, for me, because I grew up playing it, because obviously you're new to the whole series, so like you're not used to it, but like me growing up on it, I couldn't do the alternative because like basically every time it would switch camera angles, it would also like switch which way my person was going.
Yeah.
So sometimes I would be stuck in an endless loop of me going to one camera angle, going back to the other one. So I switched it to the tank controls, is what it's so lovingly referred to as. The tank controls, where it's like you push forward and then left and right turns your character left or right based on the character, not on your perspective.
I tried. And
you tried that?
Do it.
Yeah, I left mine on tank mode too. Just just because it's always tough to because I always felt like with how they implemented it, it was a little bit tougher to like if the camera was from the side, then you had to point the stick up to go left, So
yes, it was.
It was just one of those things where it was just easier just to get that OG camera view and get it from the perspective of the of my character and that sort of thing. But definitely camera controls are probably like the biggest thing. Another one for me as far as things I'm glad aren't really in games anymore are loading screens. And they're in some games, like Persona 5 has a lot of loading screens. But they're really, really quick. It's like 10 seconds and you're out.
Right.
I'm talking like the minute and a half loading screen.
Yep.
How long was Skyrim's?
Right. And at least like Skyrim, as long as you didn't go into like a building or you didn't go into like a dungeon, it was the entire world and you could just explore. And usually, especially like open world games, that's usually how it is. You load once, it takes God freaking ever. And then you're good for the entire time. That was one thing actually that I absolutely hated about playing GTA Online, is that every time you wanted to go and you wanted to go into a mission, you had to go into a loading screen. Well, sometimes that didn't work, and it would kick you out to your single player game, and then you have to log back on, and then you had to, oh my god. I've played it recently, and it's still not. It's way, way better, but it's still like it takes so goddamn long, and it's just like I'm sitting here for minutes, sometimes two, just looking at a bird's eye view of where I was standing, and then suddenly it'll zoom somewhere else, and now I'm at the mission. I'm like, oh my god, that's so weird.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I remember probably my first video game memory about not really having a loading screen was Dragon Ball Z Budokai 2 on I think it might have been the PlayStation 2.
Oh yeah.
You could jiggle your analog sticks in the loading screen, and it would make, little Goomba men pop up.
Yep.
And it was a fun little mini game type thing, like how many can I get on the screen this time,
Yep.
So that was, so the fact that loading screens aren't a thing, and if they are a thing, keep them short and brief.
Yeah.
Like, for example, God of War has a loading screen, but it's like 20 seconds and you're right back in.
Right.
So as long as it's not the minute, that one's a big one. Probably the other big thing for me is how little the D-pad gets used in games now for movement. And because like now the D-pad is, let's switch your inventory, which is like another thing we can talk about. Is just like general UI and how you switch weapons and all that stuff, So like back in the day, it might have been to switch to your shotgun, hold L1 and R1 and triangle. Now it's like a quick up on the D-pad and you're good to go.
So. It's funny. I was actually playing a game right after I got done playing Resident Evil, and I tried using the D-pad to move myself around, and I couldn't, and I'm like, and like, so I had to like readjust myself, put my finger, move my finger 2 inches down or whatever, but still it's that like little like brain part, and I'm like, why is it doing what I want?
Like the only time D-pad is any good for gaming now is like true blue platformers, like Shovel Knight. It's definitely really good. And you can even argue Celeste, but at least Celeste, at least Celeste has its own niche as to why you might want to use the analog stick as opposed to the
like
D-pad.
diagonal and stuff.
Yeah, it's because of the diagonal and the double dash, and so that kind of thing. But yeah, the lack of use of a D-pad is really, really nice.
Yeah. I mean, I think another really big one I'm personally glad is no save zones. Like I used to play JRPGs. I was a big Final Fantasy fan, and it didn't happen often, but every once in a while, if I had like this big long session and then for some reason I died, and then I realized that I had to replay like 3 or 4 hours of a game because I just happened to have forgotten to save a game, it is probably like one of the biggest frustrations. It's almost as frustrating as having your save file deleted.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm just going to keep using Persona because it's a huge JRPG game which uses a lot of old school elements to it.
Right.
When you're in the dungeons for Persona, you can only save in safe rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can get different items that would take you to your closest last known safe room.
Okay, yeah.
And, so it was your save point. That was the only time you could save while you're actually in the dungeon. And if you died, you would just go back to your last known save point from the last time you saved.
Okay.
So it wasn't really that bad. Sometimes it got pretty gruesome, but most of the time it's fine. But yeah, for sure. Like, the only thing I wish games did a little bit differently, was instead of, like, especially during a boss fight, start the boss back over from full health rather than a checkpoint on the boss. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see what you mean.
So I would think that something like that would be the only thing I would complain about as far as the save points and checkpoints and all that. But that's definitely a big one, is not having to worry about your save.
Yeah.
You know, in The Last of Us, you're just playing along and all of a sudden, oh crap, you got to go to Kroger to get something.
Yeah.
Just turn it off and you're good to go, you know. So that's always really nice.
Yeah, I mean, it is annoying, although I do have to admit what I think the only time that like save points make sense nowadays are RPGs and actually horror movies, or not movies, you know what I meant, horror games. Because like Alien Isolation, like that tension that you get when you're on your way to, you're like, maybe you see the save point, you're like, oh, I'm right there, but you don't know where the alien is. That tension that you feel, and then maybe getting next to it, but then getting impaled from behind or grabbed, and then he tongues you to death or something. Like, that feeling is just like, that's really actually kind of cool. And so I feel like that's ingrained enough into survivor horror where it's not that bad, you know. And I'd say the same thing, especially like if you're playing a JRPG, there, you know, like having a save point isn't that bad, you know.
Yeah.
It just has to. I feel like one of the best things that they can do is they can implement them in really interesting ways, and just ways that make sense, rather than just like here, like typewriters. You know, it's like, here's a typewriter. What are we doing? Writing a novella of what we've been doing so far? And how does that make us suddenly go backwards? Like, it just.
Yeah, I mean, I see that for sure. I'm just, yeah, you mentioned that, and I didn't realize how big of a pain that was. But yeah, that's definitely something that is worth mentioning there for sure.
Yeah.
And then I guess the last thing for me is just general UI interaction is so much cleaner and nicer than it was back in the day from a gameplay standpoint. You know, like in The Last of Us and really God of War, like I said, to change your weapons, it's just click left on the D-pad, and now you got, you know, your weapon.
Yeah, right.
You know, so that's just super nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Instead of having to go into a menu and then go into like a sub menu and then switch.
Yeah, and that still exists for some things, obviously, but now most of the time you can switch weapons on the fly. You can do it really quickly. Oh, yeah. It's really easy. You know, that sort of thing. So that's always really nice.
Yep. All right, so then my topic of the day is actually battle royales and how they are inherently unfair. And so then one of you are supposed to be, of course they're fun-fair.
Well, of course they're unfair.
Did you say fun-fair? I want to go to
That's what I meant,
yeah. Come on, everybody. There's a fun fair down at the Krusty Krab.
There's a fun fair over here. They got rides and everything. Anyways, but no, battle royales are inherently unfair. And, like, to the point where, like, I'm actually surprised so many people are wanting them to become, like, an esport. Because it's like, it's not fair. Like, a battle royale game isn't a fair game, and so therefore, like, testing your skill is harder at a battle royale game, because you could just be absolutely screwed over by the place you decide to drop, versus somebody else drops, gets armor, gets like a helmet if you're in PUBG or H1Z1, gets, you know, a gold weapon, gets like all this stuff, and all you literally get is like a handgun.
Yeah.
So, but like, now I don't play a lot of Fortnite. I don't play, you know, a lot of Battle Royale. So is the loot different for every like game start, or
yes,
is it?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, like, I'll use a Blackout because it's the most recent example. But this goes across Fortnite, H1Z1, and PUBG. But basically, like, certain areas will have like higher chances at better loot. But then obviously those are the parts of the map that everybody goes to. So it's like you have to be really confident in your shooting skills for you to want to jump there. But even then, like I've gone to like cargo, I've gone to firing range, and I've ran around and not been able to find anything. And so then somebody drops next to me, they happen to find like an SMG or even just a freaking pistol for that matter. Like what will happen a lot of times that really pisses me off to the point where it's like I don't want to play the game is like I'll drop and I'll get a bunch of attachments, or I'll get a bunch of first aids, or I'll get a bunch of perks or something like that. But for the life of me, I cannot find a freaking weapon. So then what happens? I die. And my average kills right now is 0 because that happens like all the time to me, and it's like really annoying. And so yeah, kind of like what I was saying before, it's just like battle royales are just inherently unfair, and like I feel like that's one thing that like not a lot of people harp on, like, and for probably good reasons, because I mean they are fun. You know, I don't want to say that they're not unfun. They're not unfun. I'm just trying to point out the fact that they're actually like super unfair. Like Call of Duty multiplayer, I go in with a primary, I go in with a secondary if I choose to, obviously. I go in with abilities and stuff like that. And I have it's all about my skill from that point on, pretty much. It's like they gave me all the tools basically to go in there and wreck fools, and I have the same chance as somebody else has the same chance. The only difference is what equipment that person chooses. And so like that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that battle royale, you can't really choose what equipment you drop next to. You know, because it could be a pistol, it could be a sniper rifle, it could be absolutely nothing in a lot of cases. But the person next to you gets the armor, gets the machine gun, gets whatever. And it's like, it's really unfair. And so that's actually like I would actually like, I don't know how they run tournaments. Have you guys ever seen like a battle royale tournament played and like how they run it?
No, I have no idea. I don't even know how you would do that.
Right, which is why because like they got Fortnite Fridays and they got like Fortnite. I mean, Fortnite obviously is the big one, and they're coming up with esports, and it's just all everywhere, and you have Ninja and whatever.
Can it be
but it's like, how do they do it? Because like it doesn't seem like it is inherently unfair. So it's like, how do we know? I don't know. Like, I honestly, if somebody knows who's listening how they actually run a tournament, and like, what is it, like a point system, or is it just survival? Because if it is, that is really like, I don't think that's the way to run a Fortnite.
Yeah, because if it's just survival, I mean, more often than not, I like to be a very when I do have the chance to play. When Blackout came out, I played almost nonstop, and I like multiplayer more, but Blackout's fun. But when I started playing Blackout, I am a very defensive player. I don't like to get in the middle of confrontation. I like to try and pick people off, stay towards the outside edge of the circle, all that.
Right.
You know, call me what you want, I don't care. That's how I play.
Yeah, that's me too.
And
so.
if it's based on that, then everyone's just going to be doing that. And then...
Yeah.
This is
personally, like, how I would run it if it was up to me, like, it has to be some type of a point system. You know, like, not necessarily like fantasy football, but like, stick with me. It's like, if you get up to the top 10, like, basically, like, you should get the equivalent points of how many positions you go up. So, for instance, if you win, that's 100 points because you went up 100 positions. Then you should also get points for like kills. So whether it be 1, 2, 3, whatever points you decide, you should get that many points for kills. And and maybe even like if it's squads, maybe bonus points for wiping an entire squad or so. I don't know, but like it should be that way so that, like, for instance, let's say we play 5 rounds and the person who wins like 3 times out of 5 wins because he sticks to the edges, he doesn't shoot anybody, and literally the only reason he wins is because he takes a couple of pop shots right at the very end to kill the last person. Like, was that person skillful or were they just a survivalist? You know what I mean? And so, like, but if you do it sort of the way I'm proposing, you get the points for surviving, but then you also get points for killing, And so, like, somebody who's like a slayer, maybe he didn't make it up to position 1, but he killed a bunch of people on his way, so he wins because he won. I mean, but then also that would be a way to run a tournament so that you don't have to have 100 players at once. Yeah. Maybe you only have like 10 consoles, and so you want to run a tournament. But how do you run a tournament with only 10 consoles? Well, I think that's probably one way you could do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of you definitely have to do multiple rounds with the same group, right?
Right.
So, like, if you had, let's say, 1,000 people at a tournament, and, I know that's really high, but, you start off, with just internet play or something, on a private server and all that good stuff. For qualifiers, you get the top 10 from each group, right? So then that would give you your 100, right?
Okay,
yeah.
So how many games would you have to play to really determine who's good? 10, 5, 15?
At least 5, personally. I think 5, because I feel like that you could suck 2 times but do great 3 times, and that still means you're a pretty good player, and I feel like, at least from like a professional Call of Duty perspective, they almost always do it in 5 rounds, so you have to do best out of 3.
Okay.
Yeah. So if let's just say you did that, 5 is a pretty small sample size, but if you already have 100 of the top 1,000 players, let's say, that's pretty decent. If you can win 3 out of 5. Where it gets really muddy is, how do you differentiate the guy that averages in the 30s, but he gets the most kills, right? Like,
yeah,
how do you?
Yeah, and I mean that creates the whole cluster that I'm talking about. Is that, like, here you have somebody who's really good at killing, but maybe he's just not good at finishing, giggity. So, so maybe he is a really good slayer, but then when it comes down to clutch, maybe he. And I mean, obviously, if we're talking about a battle royale, that is the point. The point is to be the last person. You don't have to be the best killer. You don't even have to be the best player. You just have to be the last. Which, if everybody started off with at least a pistol or at least an SMG or something like that, that's when it would be fair, because at least then when I'm running up to this person in front of me, I know they're going to have, like a pistol. But when you drop down and you could get literally anything, it's like, I don't know, that's when it gets a little bubble.
So, I mean, that seems like a pretty simple fix all in all. Like,
maybe.
But again, part of the skill is finding your items and figuring out how to survive with the items you're given.
Yeah, true.
Like the one time I played Fortnite, I basically created myself in a box. Like, I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So I found enough materials to build myself inside of a box, and you can see through the boxes or whatever. And basically, I would kill people that would walk by with my axe or whatever I had at the time, and that's how I got my weapon. Like,
interesting. I
actually killed a couple people like that. So,
an opportunity.
And this is when Fortnite first came out.
Mm-hmm.
But so I mean, I would say part of the skill gap is being able to find those weapons, and also if you're at that level where you're competing for $1 million or whatever, like, I would imagine all the tricks and the nicks and the crannies. You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna be able to find something if you're at that level, I feel like.
Yeah, and I mean it like we were saying, like to a degree, you can drop here and know that you have a chance for this, but that's it. It's a chance. You know, what if you go literally to the exact same spot that you went last time, where there was an assault rifle is now a sniper rifle or something like that. You know, it's never going to be the same because it's always and I feel like the biggest thing that really pisses me, especially Fortnite, the biggest thing that'll piss me off is if I get to a chest and like not even a weapon pops out. They've gotten a way better than they used to be, but like sometimes I'd open up a chest, maybe get a grenade, and then like a bunch of like med packs or whatever. It's like my thing always was that if I get to a chest, the chest should be like this beacon of hope, because you even hear oh through your headphones or whatever. It should be this beacon of hope. So when I get to it, I don't want anything under green. But sometimes you'll get a white. Sometimes you'll get a, like, honestly, I'd even go as far as blue. Like, you shouldn't get anything below a blue. But, you know, like, because if anything, if you think about it, like the most common and uncommon guns, those should be the ones you find just strewed about. You know what I mean? And it's like, because blue is counted as rare, and then you got epic and legendary. So, like, rare and legendary stuff, those shouldn't be on the ground, even though I found them on the ground. But, like, those shouldn't be on the ground. Those are the ones you're looking for. Those are the ones you're hoping for. So, like, those should be in chest, and then everything else should just be white and green. Like, that's the way it should be. And yeah, going up to a chest and then just getting maybe some bandages and some ammo or something like that. I was like, really? It's like I had to go to the top of this building, break through a couple of walls, you know, and finally I get to it and all I get is like bandages. It's like, F you, game.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's kind of like if you're trying to play a card game. You know, it's like you're playing Magic or something. You know, what do you top deck at the end? Does he just get the right top deck and you didn't? Like, you know. So I think that's kind of comparable. And I think that's just part of the esport and the skill of, okay, what if I get to this crate and there's bandages? Okay, how can I survive enough to find some weapon? You know what I mean? But again, if you're talking about the best of the best, you're going to be able to find something just because you know the game inside and out. You know percentages. You know, like there's a 7% chance there's going to be, you know, a weapon in this spot. I mean, you know all that if you're at that level, you know. So I don't think it's now for the casual. I could definitely understand the frustration, and also, you know, since I don't play Battle Royale, I thought you start off with a pistol or something. No. But but that'd be a pretty fair thing just to say, hey, everybody gets a basic pistol,
right?
You know, and just kind of go from there. So that's something that might, that might
even
be
that,
something
or
that
like
eventually
your pickaxe. Like, I feel like if you hit somebody with your pickaxe from behind, like there should be some type of like execution. Where you do this little animation, doesn't have to be a really long one, but maybe like put the pickaxe into their head. But of course, that would make it too violent for Fortnite. But something like that, where I could do a kill move, just one swipe. Like I've done the same thing in Blackout too. I've gone up behind somebody and started punching them, and they were able to, because I saw them going for a gun, and I didn't have enough time to like react or whatever, so I just started punching them because I thought, and this is where I was wrong, and so now I know. But I thought like, hey, I'm coming up from behind. This has to be an insta kill or at least 2 or 3 hits, right? Nope. Almost the entire time I was behind him, but then he finally whipped it out. He whipped around and, you know, got a headshot, I'm pretty sure, because it was like 2 shots and I was dead.
Yeah. So, I mean, sure. I mean, I'm guessing, you know, the system isn't perfect yet, and that's probably something that'll come down the line, you know, especially if they make it a big esport and there's millions of dollars on the line. You know, eventually there's going to be a top player that'll complain and they'll put it in. You know, so
well, right, and I guess that's my my issue right now is that that's where Fortnite is. Fortnite is this big thing. So, I mean, I'll say it once again for all the listeners. If you know or if you've watched a Fortnite, I would genuinely, like, this isn't just like, hey, go to RTX. I would genuinely like to know, like, how they run a Fortnite tournament, because it's like, to me, it just seems supremely unfair. So it's like, how can you... Like, it's one thing being good at the game. It's another thing being competitive, because it's like, there's just so much luck involved sometimes. Not all the time. I can admit that. But a lot of times it's luck. A lot of times it's being quick enough. And I mean, there is a certain amount of skill to picking up a gun before somebody else picks it up. But then there's also sometimes just a lot of freaking luck. So that was just my whole thing. You know, you guys let us know what you guys think about it. Or if, like, once again, if you know how Fortnite tournaments work. Also, let us know, what do you think about the Marvel cancellations and things in games that you're so glad aren't around nowadays. Let's move on to our last topic of the day, which is my favorite ever. And since it's October, we're going to be talking about horror movies. Woohoo! So, my favorite... Who went first last time? It was Coach last time. So, Chief Foles, you'll go first. What's your runner-up for favorite horror movie of all time?
Runner-up. Shutter Island.
Shutter Island?
I'm not sure about the critics' review or, like, the general populist review of Shutter Island, but it was a Leonardo DiCaprio movie. It was very fun. I don't know if it would be considered horror, but I would definitely consider it a psychological thriller. And there are a few jump scares and some horror elements to it, but it is a very good ride. I really liked that movie. It really made you think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shutter Island, I would consider that to be a scary movie. I mean, it's definitely thriller, but I mean, it's kind of like The Shining. If you say The Shining is your favorite scary, I mean, I would consider them to be in the same camp, you know, as far as the type of movie, because there are definitely some moments in that movie, like when he's in the old like prison or whatever it is, like it's very creepy.
The institution or wherever he goes to do
that's it, the institution, that's it. So if that's, I mean, I would definitely consider that to be a scary movie.
Yeah. All right, Coach, runner up.
The original Carrie.
Okay.
I just really like the movie. Honorable mention would probably be any of the Exorcist.
Yeah. Okay.
But definitely the original Carrie. I think just because it had a deeper story to it than just, here's the scary thing. You know, it's an abusive situation. I'm assuming both of you have seen the movie.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So, it just had a little bit more to it, and I enjoy that from horror movies. But, I'd really enjoyed and I also enjoyed the remake, too, because it was almost beat for beat with the old one.
Yeah, which I think is a lot of people's problem, but it's like,
Yeah, but, the old one is definitely something that I try to watch, that I usually watch about once a year around this time.
Nice.
So I'd enjoy it.
All right. So then my runner-up for my favorite ever is It. 2017. That was last year, right? Yeah. So 2017's It.
Wow.
I think, like, the main reason it's one of my favorite of all time is... it does have jump scares and everything, but I feel like, in my personal opinion, they're never cheap jump scares. They're not just jump scares with really loud noises and, it's not the music that you're jumping at. It is literally what's happening on screen. There's so many jump scares nowadays, especially when you add in the fake outs and all this, that it's just like you're jumping more because there was a loud noise rather than you're genuinely scared of what's on screen. And, I feel like it had a lot of what I'm going to call long jump scares, because it would have something that was very disturbing and then maybe that thing would come towards the camera or come like, so you would see it, and that wasn't really the jump scare because you see it. What's the jump scare? Is it coming like towards you or something like that? So like a good example would be like the kids in the sewer, the balloon comes up to him, it pops, Pennywise is behind him, like a little ways behind him, and then he comes towards the camera. Or like down in the basement, he has his brother, and he's like using him as a ventriloquist doll, basically, and he slams him down, and then he comes towards him really. So they're jump scares, but they're very long and drawn out, in my opinion, and I really like that. But the number one reason why it's my second of all time is that it's a good movie. It's not necessarily that it was focused on being a good horror movie. It was focused on being a good movie, period. And then that made the horror element of it that much more palpable, that much more like tangible, just something I feel like I could reach out and touch, because it's like they worried about making good characters that I believe in, especially with kid actors. I mean, it very well could have gone to a level of cheese. Like, I feel like the 90s made for TV I mean, you have Seth Green, and you see Seth Green, and you just naturally go, ha ha ha. And you do laugh. There are so many moments in it where I laugh. But I feel like that's what made the scary moments even scarier, is because it's like I cared about these kids. I cared about what happened to them. And so, I mean, just the fact that it's a good movie on the side and it's a good horror movie, that's the reason it's my runner-up of all time.
Well, the other big thing, too, is that it himself is, like, ever-present, you know?
Right.
So, like, the whole movie, you're on the edge of your seat because you're like, where's it? What is he doing right now? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just one of those things. And I think that's kind of why I like Carrie so much, is because I think it's just a good movie.
Yes.
Not just a, you know, like I said, it had a real story to it, had a real plot to it. There was a kind of reasoning behind what was happening while it was happening. You know, and obviously it got really supernatural, but the movie itself, you know, and you kind of felt good for her whenever she finally started going crazy, because you're like, hell yeah, you know,
get him, girl.
Yeah, I mean, as weird as that sounds, but yeah, so I think I'm with you on that, especially for it. I didn't even consider it.
Yeah, you didn't even consider it.
Yeah, you know, but I probably should have.
Yeah,
but I didn't. And
well, and see,
yeah,
like,
definitely
scary movies nowadays, kind of going off of what you were saying, like, scary movies nowadays, so many of them have such convoluted stories and reasonings and characters doing something that you just don't understand. And so that's why I feel like in a movie like Carrie or in a movie like It, establishing your characters is the most important part, so that when, like, the kids, they start doing stupid stuff, it's like, well, they've already established that maybe this kid's a smartass, maybe this kid's agoraphobic, so he's afraid of everything. They already established that so well in the movie, so that when they do start doing stupid things that you would normally see in a horror movie, it makes sense to the context at which it is. There's so many horror movies out there that it's pretty much just one scene to the next, and it's more about the gore, it's more about the jump scare, it's more about that stuff than it is about the actual, like, story. And, like, that's what makes a good horror story, is the story.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like Truth or Dare is probably a really good example. There's so like the Bye Bye Man. There's so many examples out there where it's like, you don't care about the characters in them, so why do you care if they die?
Yeah, for sure. And probably the other thing that hurts a lot of horror movies is they go for the jump scares, like you mentioned, a little bit too much. Like in It, like you said, they weren't really jump scares. They were just more like you knew it was coming, and then something finally happened.
Yes.
You know.
It was the build-up is always the build-up is 10 times more important than the actual scare itself. Because if you don't have the right atmosphere, you don't have the right build-up, you don't have that tension, that pulling, and then finally release. If you don't have that, it's not a good one. So, let's move on. What's your favorite of all time, Coach?
I am going to go with, and I'm kind of cheating a little bit because I like the movie so much.
Oh, hey, Nate. I didn't know you were here.
Yeah, I know. But The Conjuring, definitely the first Conjuring. Like, if I had to pick one, it would be Conjuring 1. But then The Conjuring 2.
Right.
The first Conjuring, granted, I'm a little bit biased towards it because I watched it the first time when I was in college. It was me and about 10 people in the room.
Nice.
So it was just a really good time. We had some beverages while we watched it.
There you go.
So I'm a little bit biased in that sense, but the first Conjuring, it was probably like before it and after Carrie, one of the first here's a real story,
right,
about this thing that is based on a true story, and it wasn't cheesy, it wasn't corny, it was taken very seriously. Like the Paranormal Activity movies I found are all awful.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't, you know what I mean? And people were terrified about a door opening. I'm like, they just left the window opening. There was a big breeze,
right?
But
that's also why I'm going to go right off of that. That's also why, there's a couple of different shows out there now, like one on Discovery. There's a new one on Netflix. The one on Netflix called Haunted. The one on Discovery is called like Paranormal Witness. Yeah. What makes those scary is that one, they actually happen because they're getting the testimonies from them, but then also they have like the reenactments. Whereas you have those like Ghost Adventurers or what's the real big one? I just lost it. What's the big one where they're the Roto-Rooter on the side and oh man, why am I blanking on this?
Well, isn't there like a Ghost Hunters or something?
There you go, Ghost Hunters. I don't know why I couldn't think of that because I said Ghost Adventurers, Ghost Hunters, and like you said, them getting all freaked out because they saw something move. It's like, that's not too scary. But those same situations put into like this dramatic, reenactment, and there's characters and there's testimony and there's like actual like acting and stuff like that. That's when it actually gets scary because it's like, oh my god, I'm actually like seeing it happen or whatever. Like, so yeah, sorry, I had to say that.
Yeah, no, for sure. But and again, I'm a little bit biased towards The Conjuring 1. I don't think The Conjuring 2 is quite as good. But just the story, the acting was really good. And relatively, I could see that being an issue. Like how the haunting was occurring. Like I could see that being a real thing that would happen. It was very believable. Some of the stuff towards the very end, you could kind of argue but it's still a movie at the end of the day, and it was just a really good horror movie. I didn't feel like it was cheap jump scares. So that was the big one for me is The Conjuring 1 and 2. And again, it was a good night watching it with my friends in college, and so I think I'm a little bit biased for that reason.
Yeah.
But I actually have a really good real life haunting story if you guys want to listen to it later.
Yeah.
But, so we'll do that when we get off air because I don't know how public the people that it happened to want it. So,
alrighty. T. Foles, your favorite of all time?
Giving it to Rob Zombie, House of a Thousand Corpses.
House of a Thousand Corpses. What? I don't think I've seen that.
An early 2000s, just fright fest. Just it's a good movie. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's just got everything. It's got gore. It's got jump scares. It's got twists. It just makes you uncomfortable while you watch it.
And that one had the spin-off, didn't it? Like
the sequel to it is Devil's Rejects with the Firefly family, which is also good and also very, very up with some of the things that happened in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
It's just great if you want a scary thriller movie. It's just survival horror. You know, it's the typical trope of campers need a night to stay, and then they go off and find this house. Like, yeah, sure, come on in. We'll house you for the night. And terror ensues.
Right. That's funny. So my number one of all time, and I would argue probably one of the best movies of all time, is John Carpenter's The Thing. And, I mean, the main reasons, there's two main reasons. I'll go in order of importance. One of the main reasons is the practical effects. So when there is this creature, this like vomit-inducing creature on screen, it felt real. It felt tangible. It felt like you could reach out and touch it because guess what? You could.
The dog. Talking about the dog.
Yeah, right. The dog. Like my favorite, probably one of my favorite, like if we're talking about like gory scene, whether it's in a horror movie or not, but my favorite like gory scene of all time is when he goes in to do the defibrillators and then the chest just opens up and eats the guy's arms.
Yeah.
It's also one of the just most unexpected things I have ever seen in a movie to date. Like there's so many other situations like in movies or anything where like it's telegraphed enough where you can probably guess what's going to happen. But in this situation, it's like they're trying to revive this guy, and you're really worried about because like you've been watching this guy from the very beginning, and then just out of nowhere, his chest opens up, and there's these giant teeth, and you're just like, "What the f*** is going on?" And it's like not only that, but then the way it crescendos is his head falls off, grows like grows like little spider legs and starts going. You're just like, oh my god,
it's a thing.
Yeah.
It's good.
Wow. And then the absolute main reason this is the number one of all time is it is a psychological horror. It pits people against people because literally anybody could be the thing, and even all the way up to the end, which has been debated and talked about for years and years after it's been made. You know, is he the thing or is he the thing? You know, and so I just, just the absolute gut-wrenching psychological warfare that's constantly going on, and it just keeps you guessing. And it's just like, I think another main reason about the psychological aspect of it is the fact that like on repeat viewings you start questioning, okay, this person said this, why did they say that? Did they turn into the thing here or was it later? You know, like there's so many things that on repeat viewing just make it even more and more of a tangled web. So like so many horror movies you could watch once and then it's like, okay, maybe I'll watch it every once in a while, but it's like this one, like it begs for repeat viewings.
Mm-hmm. Now, a fun fact about The Thing.
Oh, fun fact. Yeah. What a little FF on you.
Oh, yeah. In the beginning, like the opening scene, like the credit scene.
Yeah, right.
Like the destroyed base.
Yeah.
That's actually when the base blows up at the end. Mm-hmm. That's that base.
Oh, interesting.
That they just reused that they just reused that scene just as nice. And called it a different location.
Nice. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you're working on a budget, you gotta find ways to make it work, you know?
Well,
that's funny.
Here's a question I wanted to pose, because this one probably could have been an honorable mention for me. Nobody mentioned the original Saw movie.
That's. I mean, it's
The
a
original.
good movie. It's a good movie, and I would even argue that it's one of the only Saws that could be considered a horror. Because 2 and onward, they're just gore porn at that point, you know? So,
yeah, for sure.
I would argue that, but best of all time, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely a good one. If we made a top 20, I think it would make it somewhere on the top 20, but like, yeah, not my top 2 for sure.
I don't know. It would probably be more like top 5 for me. I just thought it might be in somebody's because it's such a popular franchise, you know.
I think the reason why it escapes us is because just that diminishing return. It's like 2, in my opinion, 2 was okay. 3 was like, oh yeah, I mean, I can still. 4 was just like, okay, yeah, I'm just watching it out of tradition.
Yeah, for
and then
sure.
5, and then 6, and I haven't seen Jigsaw, like the newest one where it's like, you know, it was technically like a soft reboot or whatever. So I haven't seen that one personally, but it's on Hulu. It's one of those things. It's like, you know, obviously I have a wife and kids. My wife doesn't really like horror movies, so it's like it's hard to like, you know, hey, you want to watch Jigsaw? And then it's also hard to like watch it on my days off because I still have my daughter. So it's like, you know, it's one of those situations just like I've been meaning to, but haven't really gotten around to it.
Yeah, it just kind of hit me like just now as we were kind of wrapping up. Nobody mentioned Saw, like, at all. Like, it was just, because the original Saw, if you haven't seen it, I never watched it until I got older, mainly because all I heard was, oh yeah, it's just gore porn, and I'm not really into that. But for some reason, I took a chance, it was on Netflix, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to watch this thing, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, so, it was just, and I didn't know anything about the twist at the end.
Oh yeah, right.
You know, so when that happened, I was like mind blown, you know?
Oh, yeah. If we were making like a top like horror twists of all time, I think that might have made it definitely up there. Maybe not number 1, but at least maybe number 2 or whatever, because that's definitely one of the biggest twists in a horror movie of all time, where it's just like, oh, yeah, that dead guy right in the center. Yeah, he's not dead.
Yeah, no. I mean,
like,
it was
you
just
can't really
like
top
how he
that.
just,
like,
yeah, I mean, he totally just got up and was sitting there the whole time. And, you know, just what was worse was how easy they could have got out of their situation.
Oh, yeah, right?
You know, it was just one of those things where it was just really insane, like, at the time that I watched it. So I guess that would just be my honorable mention. I just thought it was interesting that it never came up. So.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so it's your turn, listeners. What's yours? That's a good choice. Let us know.
And we're waiting for the response.
Let us know at X3 or TX3 Productions on Twitter or Threat X3 Productions on Facebook. What's your favorite ever horror movie of all time? So that's pretty much gonna be the show for the day. This week's weekly grind will actually be replaced by our very first Resident Evil in review. And then, so moving onwards, we'll have a regular weekly grind. What have we been up to? What have we been doing? And then every other week will be replaced by Resident Evil in review all the way up until February. Because basically, Resident Evil 2 will come out on the 25th of January. We'll give ourselves 2 weeks to play that, which honestly I think is going to be way too long. Because that one I'm going to want to plow straight through just because I'll be so excited for it. But we'll give ourselves 2 weeks to do that one. And so then from there on, the weekly grinds will pretty much be normal. So thank you so much, Coach, for joining us.
Oh, yeah, no problem, man. It's always a good time.
T. Foles, you're the man.
Of course, I am.
All right, thank you for joining us for Nerd to the Third, where you can always talk nerdy to me. Did somebody just say, "Oh, Canada"?
I'm gonna mark that for you.
Who was singing "Oh, Canada"?
I have a soon-to-be 13-year-old brother, so
Oh, okay.
He was walking.
That was
All right.
He was walking past my room in the hall.